notification is Beth. Better get my little cheat sheet out.
Bow your head with me, please. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you've given us. Thank you for each one here today and the opportunity to serve as Rotarians. Help us to always be mindful of service of others before ourselves. We remember those who are not here today with us and ask for your blessings on them. And we thank you for this meal and thank you for the hands that have prepared it. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Beth. Okay, if you would check your cell phones, say the four-way test with me. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? If someone would pick up the cart bucket, again, we're running a little bit high in there. Just came back from the district conference, and I tell you, it's amazing what Rotary is doing and things like this. So please be generous with the cart bucket. Okay. Is Terrence here? You can do it all? Do it all. Okay. So we have the pleasure of Anne Marie Stearns bringing us health and happiness and also fellowship. Just trying to load her up while we got her. Come on.
Very good, and I apologize because I didn't know I was going to do double duty. I don't happen to have a list of any of our visiting Rotarians today, so if we do have some visiting with us from another club, would you please stand up so we have an opportunity to welcome you here today? Wonderful, thank you so very much. And if we have any Rotarians with guests, if you could please stand.
My name is Kay Shaw, and my guest today is Colleen Coletta. Colleen is a graphic designer and the co-owner of Blue Avenue, a local marketing firm.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Truesdale, and I have the pleasure of introducing Molly Spearman. Many of you know Molly from her years in the educational community here in South Carolina. She's currently the director of South Carolina Association of School Administrators. Welcome, Molly Spearman.
Very good. Well, thank you. All of our guests and our visiting Rotarians, we're thrilled to have you here with us today at the Columbia Rotary Club. I also, is Elliot Hell here? Is Dr. Horton here?
Elliot's here.
He's right behind us, Elliot.
We did want to take an opportunity to recognize two very special guests that are here with us. I know very familiar to many of you. Ira Horton and his wife are here. If they could please stand up, be recognized. Okay, they're hiding, so stay tuned. But many of you know the generosity of the Hortons, both to this club and also they're now down in the Mount Pleasant area. So we're just thrilled that they're up and visiting with us again today. So thank you so much. And should I just go ahead and do health and happiness now? All right. Very good. We didn't have too much member news today. Most of you were commenting on it's great that it's spring and also commenting on pollen coming out. So both health and happiness, I suppose, there. With that, some news of note. Sue Williams with the Children's Trust. You might have seen her article today in the state paper. Make sure you take a look at that. It's called Protect the Program That Protects South Carolina Families. So you might want to see that from our very own Sue if you haven't yet had a chance to see that today. Also, Matt Kennel told me that as he was driving over here to the meeting today, he got some terrific news. His 19-year-old daughter has just been accepted into MUSC Pharmacy School. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to Matt and his family. So and thank you. I guess we're among the first to hear that great news. So thanks for letting us as fellow Rotarians share that. Is there anything else that I might have missed? Any health and happiness I missed coming in today?
There is one. Anne Marie, you aren't comfortable saying this, but Anne Marie has been named the Distinguished Woman of the Year for the Girl Scouts, will be recognized next week among 3 others who are receiving that distinction. So congratulations.
It is an honor. And also should recognize Beth Dindorf of Columbia College, who is also a member of this club, is also being honored that night. So if you see the other 2 women being honored are Dawn Staley, and in the news quite a bit as of late, and Serena Birch with Stana. So all of those fabulous women in the community, and happy that 2 of them are coming out of this club. So thank you for that. I do have one that is both health and happiness that I wanted to share with you. Some of you may have heard this in the news over the weekend. This made international news, quite frankly. India has been declared polio-free. And as Rotarians, know what that means. And this is something that would have been unthinkable a decade ago, but it is in large part because of the resources, the forethought, and the real commitment over a long period of time that benchmark for the entire globe actually has been achieved. And as Rotarians, we should all be happy to be a part of that. I was fortunate actually to be at an international services training session for the Red Cross last week. Bill Cronin's here. And it was very telling to notice that the International Red Cross is very involved in measles eradication now. And they've actually looked at the Rotary polio model as a way that they can look to tackle other diseases, namely in that case measles. So I thought that was very telling. I thought the other thing that was great about it is a lot of times, I think a lot of our dialogue lately, we forget that we're capable of doing big things. And this is something that clearly, with people coming together, we're able to do big things. The other thing is March is Literacy Month for Rotary International. So in keeping with my usual health and happiness theme, I have a few kind of language literacy related questions and trivia for you to see if you can get some of these. So 1 out of every 8 letters that you read is what letter? E. E. Very good. Who was the Scottish-American businessman and philanthropist who's really responsible for building out our public library system in the United States? Andrew Carnegie. And this was important. A total of 2,509 Carnegie libraries were built between 1883 and 1929. And a few towns that requested a grant and agreed to his terms were refused. And also when the grant was made in 1919, think about this impact of philanthropy. There were over 3,500 libraries in the United States. Over half of them were built with construction grants by Carnegie. So again, big things are possible. In 1939, an author named Ernest Vincent wrote a 5,000-word novel called Gadsby. What is very unique about this particular novel? Kind of goes back to the first question I asked. There is not a single letter E in the entire novel. What? I haven't checked it, so you can decide if this is one I just found this morning that I thought was interesting. This book was outlawed in the People's Republic of China between 1965 and 1991 for portraying what was called early Marxism. Any ideas? Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham. No lie, and 1991 was the year that Theodore Geisel, Dr. Seuss, passed away, and that's when the ban was lifted. What is the oldest federal cultural institution in the nation? It was founded in 1800. Lots of books.
Library of Congress.
Library of Congress, yes. And on August 24th, 1814, British troops burned the Capitol building, which is where the library was at the time. and destroyed the whole core collection of 3,000 volumes. And on January 30th, 1815, Congress approved the purchase of whose library? Thomas Jefferson's library, his personal library of 6,487 books for a total of $23,950, and that became then the root of what is now housed in our Library of Congress. And it's the largest library in the world, and about how many miles do you think its bookshelves would cover? Any thoughts, roundabout? 838 miles of bookshelves. There's 158 million items in the Library of Congress, and they add approximately 12,000 items to the collection daily. So, the smallest book, anyone know what the small size-wise, in the Library of Congress is? It's not 2 by 2, it's smaller than 2 by 2. I was trying to figure out, this has got to be a microfiche or something because I can't figure out how this is. It says it's 1/25 of an inch by 1/25 of an inch. It's called Old King Cole, and it's about the size of a period at the end of a sentence. Off their website, so I'm assuming it's true. And the largest book in their collection, does anyone just know what it's dealing with? The largest physical size book. So it's not the tax code you would think. That might be the thickest. That might be the thickest one. I don't know if it's the largest in dimension. So it is close to maps. It's about the country of Bhutan. It's a 5 by 7 foot book featuring color images of the country of Bhutan. And this was done in partnership with Microsoft and with MIT to prepare this for their national archives. And the Library of Congress was given a copy of that as part of it. So, but this is wonderful that we've talked about all of these treasures that we have, all these literary treasures, all of these documents that are so important to us. I think as we're talking about the power of Rotary, and we talked about that polio eradication in India though, here's some other statistics dealing with adults over 16 in the United States. 14% read at or below a 5th grade reading level. 29% only read at an 8th grade level. And among those with the lowest literacy rates, 43% live in poverty. And it's estimated that low literacy costs the U.S. about $225 billion a year because of lack of productivity that then leads to, as well as unemployment in our workforce. And globally, 16% of the world's population are non-literate, and among those with low literacy skills, 2/3 of those are girls and women. So as we think about how fortunate we are, think about the challenges that we have, and remember what we did with polio. We are capable of doing big things. Thank you so much, and have a great week.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I want to mention something that's kind of related to health and happiness, just because I can. This will embarrass our judge. But I was in Charlotte last week dealing with an attorney who does a lot of trial work, and he said that Judge Joe Anderson is the best federal judge as he knows this side of the country, and I just thought that was worth mentioning. Okay, as you know, we have golf tournament coming up, but what you may not know as much about is exactly what we do with Columbia Scholars, and Neil Coyle is here today. He's going to come share with us some facts and things that are going on, and I believe he would take some volunteers to come just sit in with him this week as they interview some scholars. So, Neil, lay it on.
I do want to talk to you about the importance of our two big fundraising events, the auction in the fall and the upcoming golf tournament, because those are the primary sources of the funding that we use to support the scholarship program. Each year we give out 2 scholarships. They're very significant because they total $20,000 per student. They're $5,000 a year. Students have to maintain a B average. We've been very successful. Occasionally, as you might imagine, a student will not make their grades for one semester, but they most often come right back the next semester and regain the scholarship. All of our students, to the best of my knowledge, have finished college. Many of these students come from disadvantaged backgrounds and might not go to college if it weren't for the people in this room. The process is fairly simple. We get nominations from each of the public schools in District 1, the Central District, and the 3 private high schools. So we interview between 14 and 20 students each year. And it's a very difficult process to narrow that down to the 2 that we will select. And the Capital Rotary Club, who participates in the interview process, then also gives a scholarship to a 3rd, sometimes a 4th student. But it's a very rewarding process because you meet some amazing young students who have achieved a lot, like I say, sometimes without the support of a traditional family. Sometimes they have grit that you wonder where it came from. But we've been very successful in those students. But if you do the math, we give 2 scholarships a year and we rarely lose a student. So we commit to $40,000 a year. That's a lot of money for the number of members we have, and it's quite an achievement. Most of those students go to South Carolina schools. Occasionally we get students that go out of state because we don't limit that. It just has to be an accredited college. But most of them go to school in South Carolina. A couple of months ago you met 2 of our awardees, if you will, our scholars. Mr. Santana, who was a student at Clemson, kept his scholarship for 4 years and is in his 5th year of an engineering program through Clemson. And a young lady named Callie Taylor, who will graduate this year from Wofford. They were great examples, and I hope you remember them. I'd like you to take a time, if you can, and talk to some of the people who have been on the interview committee over the last several years. I wrote their names down so I wouldn't forget anybody, but Kathy Kennedy, Louisa Campbell, George Simmons, Alan Roberson, Earl Brown, and Dr. Sonny White. Each of those can tell you about the stories that have touched them the most. But these students are really amazing young people, and I honestly believe that we think about need, we think about merit, and we think about character when we pick. And I would say that the majority of these students might not have the opportunity to go to college, as I've said, if it weren't for us and our scholarship program. And that scholarship program is not possible without the money and the efforts that people put into the auction in the fall and the golf tournament. And I know the golf tournament's coming up, and I think some people are going to talk about that. So your support of that program is very, very important. By happenstance, we're interviewing on Wednesday afternoon. We interview at the school complex, the Olympia School Complex, Wednesday afternoon from about 12:30 to about 5:30. If any of you would like to join us, you're more than welcome to sit in for part of it or all of it if you'd like. If you'd like to join our committee, I'd love to have you there. It involves a lot of hard work, reading 7 or 10-page applications, and then doing the interviews, and then doing the hard work of picking the 2 that we can award scholarships to. But it's a big commitment on our part, and something I'm very proud of that our club does, because these are all local students, and we do good things for some great young people. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have about the scholarship program or who these people are and who we've given scholarships to, if you have any questions.
You'll remind them that we do accept homeschool.
Yes, we do. You're right. We haven't had a nominee from the homeschool program in a couple of years, but we always include them.
Neil,
Yes, sir.
how many applications do you guys get typically in a year?
This year is a little low. We have 14 this year. Last year we had 22. 22 is usually about the right number, 20 or 22. It's somewhat sad. I spoke to counselors at 2 of the local high schools, that didn't have students who had the minimum test scores to qualify for our scholarship program. We require essentially the same test scores as the Life Scholarship, because that way our $5,000 a year and the $5,000 from the Life Scholarship will allow a student with a part-time job to be able to pay books, tuition, and fees at USC if they choose to live at home. So that makes it possible. An 1100 score on the SAT or a 22 on the ACT. This year the SAT score is average. The range goes from about 1110 is the lowest score we have this year to a 1580. So we see a pretty broad range of students. They're all pretty amazing.
Neil, with that in mind, would you explain the process and how students learn of the scholarship?
The scholarships are, if you will, advertised through the guidance offices. I communicate with the guidance officers and departments at all the schools, and they tell the students about it. And so we get them directly from the guidance offices, and that's how the students learn. You cannot be related to anybody that's in our clubs, obviously, but I get a lot of inquiries over the course of the year.
Yes, sir. Do we track the graduates out of our scholarship program to see kind of where they go, what they do?
We don't. We have a mentorship program to try to hook each student up with a member of the club to stay in touch while they're in school. And Debbie takes care of all the money and the math work. And I sort of keep track of that a little bit. But so I know when they graduate, but I don't know what happens afterwards. No, I don't. Yes, sir.
Neil, I'm going to ask you about homeschool students. How should they apply? They can't go through this.
They can come through the Homeschool Association has a program office in West Columbia, and they can come through there, and they make sure that all the graduating homeschool students know about the program. Any other questions? If you have any interest in coming to see some of the interviews, I'd be happy to tell you exactly where we're going to do it on Wednesday afternoon. We'd love to have you. And if you'd like to sit down and go through 14 applications, I'd be glad to have you do that too. Thank you all very much.
Okay, before we get to our club conversation, Carl, I think one of you guys going to talk about the golf tournament players.
Sure.
Carl's coming too.
Okay.
Y'all just both come up and.
So the golf tournament is rapidly approaching, and as Neil pointed out, the golf tournament and the auction are really the two main fundraisers that support everything that we do in the community. From the scholarships, which is what the golf tournament is going to the community service grants that we were funding through all the stuff we've done at the auction. And we've been very fortunate in the past. We've had some very large sponsors that have been good to the club for a very long time, and several of those, there's been a lot of changes in the landscape. Thomas and Howard Company was recently sold, and they've been our title sponsor. In fact, it's the Howard Timberlake Golf Tournament, which is named after one of the founders of Thomas and Howard. And so we've basically got opportunities for sponsorships that we haven't had in the past. And for instance, the year that JT was president, everybody who supplied things to car dealerships seemed to be very willing to sponsor all of a sudden. Well, so some of those things aren't in play this year, so we really need corporate sponsors. And so in the next few weeks, we're going to have a pretty heavy push to try and get people. We'll take everything. There's a flyer on everybody's table, but we'll take everything from $100 hole sponsors, but we could really use a lot more gold level sponsors. And Hal Stevenson has said that he's going to put up a billboard that's going to have our top level sponsors on there, and the gold level sponsors will have a little logo up there. We're going to do stuff on our Facebook page, on our website to include your logos. So we're really, sincerely asking everybody to think about if you can step up this year and help us with some of the sponsorships. So sponsorship levels are gold, which is $1,000, silver at $500, bronze at $250, and palmetto at $100. And everybody's got flyers on your table, so please find somebody from the golf committee, myself, John Bakis, Carl, Beth Myers that offered to help out with some of this. So we're really looking forward to getting a bigger group of people to help us support a great cause to help out the tournament. Yes, sir.
Why don't you have JT sit on the reviewing committee of the various awards and put the word out?
You know, he's probably in Italy right now, or Paris, or Australia. I mean, you never know. If you can track him down and make that happen, we would love it.
John, I propose
Yes, sir.
we all send him a text right now.
Well, the thing is, we got to get all those suppliers to JT who, you know, actually that's what we need to do is say, this is JT, I need you to send me. But you're a techie guy, Andrew. Somebody in your company can make that happen, can't they?
All right, I got a cell phone number. Let's all pull out your phone and send him a text.
Perfect. Now, Carl's going to come up and talk to you about, because the other thing, you know, we do actually make money through the generosity of the Windermere Club. We actually make money by getting people to just participate and play in the tournament. So Carl's going to come and talk to you about that.
Andrew, I think that was a great idea about the phone. As a matter of fact, I'm going to raise my phone as a gesture to put this in your calendar, April 29th. We moved the date back because we didn't want to compete with the Masters or the Heritage or Easter or spring break. But we are going to take advantage of all that good weather prayer and try to slide right into that to get John Bacon and I off the hook for a minute. So on behalf of Windermere and John Bacon, the golf committee, I'm proud to talk a little bit about what we've got planned this year on April 29th. 28th.
Y'all passed the test. He was just checking on it.
So it is. Monday, April 28th, of course we won't meet here. We'd like to invite all of you who would like to come out and have lunch with us. Windermere puts on a great little buffet, and the golfers make their own sandwiches, but you can come and you can eat and watch a little golf. Before the tournament, we have a little putting contest. So we've got a $100 prize, and so it's pretty significant. And so most people go through more than once. And if you're not playing in the tournament, we're going to make arrangements that you can putt too. But that's a lot of fun. Come out early, warm up. It's a 12:30 shotgun start, so we always encourage everybody to come out and kind of get in the spirit of things and start early. For the committee, as far as registration goes, we've got Bob Diggle and Jerry Smith are heading up the registration. Their information's on the flyer. We do encourage volunteers. We have a lot of fun. Out on the course, we have some fun holes. We do some different things and different contests to make it fun for the golfers. And we could use a few more volunteers for that. And after the tournament, we have a great dinner and a good awards banquet. So it's a great day. It's a fun day. It's your fundraiser. So we're proud to put it on this year. And every year we try to raise the bar one more notch to make it a little more fun. We would like you to encourage you to put some teams together, invite some people, perhaps potential members that might come out and experience the whole Rotary golf experience with us. So with that, I appreciate everybody's participation and encouragement.
That's the Florida Gators. He wanted to make that.
Well, it was really subtle before Elliot pointed out to everybody that couldn't see that the Gators were on there. So, true Gamecock fan, Elliot. Okay, so I am really pleased to see so many actually came here today to have this discussion. Let me tell you a little bit about it, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. As you can tell, I've asked some fellow board members to sit up here with me. Back last year when I was president-elect and thinking about things to do during my year of presidency, it seemed to me that things were building to a point where we should have a conversation about where we meet, what we do, and that sort of thing. And so we've been going through that this year. Today is a time where you can make comments or ask questions. We've taken some information about price and other things that we're dealing with. We think it's very important to keep things still affordable for us as club members. Regardless of what we choose to do, though, next year our meal costs are going to go up, our venue costs are going to go up one way or the other. And what we wanted to be able to do as a board is let you speak, ask questions, answer what we can, and then go back and decide how to proceed towards making a final decision about this issue. And so that's what we're going to do, and I think, John, if I'm not mistaken, you volunteered. We're going to try to capture as much of this as we can, so that those that aren't here can enter into the conversation as well. I think I would start just the whole process with someone being willing to stand and get us started. So what do you think about Seawolves or any of the other venues, or what do you want to see, that sort of thing?
Hal, is this on? Did everybody hear this?
It is on.
All right, so John Johnston has done a lot of the work with lining up our field trips or our excursions to the other places. And basically, he's gotten the financial information from all of the venues, and basically, we have two options. And we wanted to kind of limit the comments to those.
No, I think there are two have come in to be in a range that we think are reasonable at this point. But I think we'd like to hear what people's thoughts are about the different venues, because I think we want to get a feel for what's important to people and that sort of thing.
Would you let us know what the venues are that we consider?
Yes. Our first excursion was to the Columbia Convention Center. Trying to think what we had on the program that day. But we went to the Convention Center was on it. Yeah, made sense. We attended Stone River, which is across the Gervais Street Bridge. Had baseball, Jason Fryer, I believe, that day. And then Agape Conference Center on Main Street was our last one we went to last month. I've had inquiries and had conversations with Capital City Club. I have heard so many people complain about the parking garage that we just decided not to put ourselves through that. But it could be something, we may get some comments about them, because it's a very fine club, and it's just a shame about the parking there. All right, so
I can address those, if you would, address those 2 points. One, parking, and the other, address those 2 points, because in conversations I've had with people or comments, you're right, parking and then the cost of the meal. So those 2 things might be of interest as we get started, and that might then flush out exactly where the venue should be.
okay. Here's what I know, and John, jump in anytime you've got some comments about this. The Convention Center, ample parking. There was some sense about having to walk a country mile to get to the front door and get in, and then once you get in, walking to where the meeting was going to be. Those were some of the comments. Again, what I took in was anecdotal, so I didn't do surveys about it. Stone River has maybe 70 or 80 spots. If you don't get those first 70 or 80 spots, you have to park across the street. At Agape, that section of Main Street is just, you have 2 hours free parking. There's a parking garage behind. I had varying comments come back to me that it was surprisingly easy to navigate, and then there were others that didn't like going into the parking garage at all. But that has to do with parking. Obviously, here at Seawolves, one of the biggest things they have going is ample parking and convenience.
And cost.
All right, in cost, we've got some preliminary numbers. And as we got into this, we've been very much in conversation with Cal. We're very, very grateful for what they've done for all this. They understand why we as a club should just have a process by which we go through and look at these sort of things so that everybody stays on top. Their cost is going up a couple of bucks from where it was. Just whether we, if we stay here, we're going to have an increased cost, because they have not charged or made any increases in about 6 years here. And the other venues, we started to gather some of that information. Agape is competitive. Right now, the other 2 venues just have a hard time with food costs being able to get within the range to keeping us where we are. George.
Now, let me ask you this. When we first started thinking about looking at other venues, was it just because, primarily because the costs were going up here at Seawolves, or was there something else? Because costs are going to go up everywhere. I mean, you you go to a restaurant, the next week prices have gone up. That's just
No, at the time that we started this, and I just, just to be straight up, over the years, having served on the board and in different times and places, folks have just said that the food does not meet the standard that they think it needs to meet. And those were just, over the years, people saying stuff like that. Those of us that have been at Seawolves for many, many years understand, and we're eating at Seawolves, 40 years ago, when Mr. Seawolves doing it. I mean, it's a venue that many of us love and cherish, but everybody has different tastes and different thoughts. The other thought was we should be somewhere closer to downtown. So those comments kept coming up over the years, and I determined that, look, if nobody else is going to go through a process where we can have an honest conversation about whether we want to stay or go, then I'll do it. So it was just one of those things that I thought came to a point where we needed to have the conversation, and it really is wide open. I've gotten some email comments already, and it's great to hear, because as you know, we come and go, and people don't necessarily talk a lot or want to bring up anything, and so we're trying to make sure, George, that everybody gets heard. We've got an intergenerational club, new members are trying to track people, and comments are coming in. So there wasn't any, it wasn't something where I thought there was a big, huge problem. It just kept coming up, and that we needed to have a conversation.
I rarely speak, I don't know why I'm doing it today, but when you make this decision, my challenge is that this is a business process. It is set up in a matrix type form with your categories. Price, I hear, is very important. Access for all people, very important. Parking complications are fun. Anyway, you set up the hierarchy and you weight them and you publish it. If this is going to be an open forum vote, that is published at least 2 weeks in advance so we all can think about it. You threw another category in there I didn't think of. It's called loyalty. If someone like Seawolves will go 6 years and eat their overhead, their margin, loyalty is a big factor. And George, you made a comment, nothing is stable. And it looks like we've had a very stable environment right here. The last thing,
comment about loyalty.
The last thing that I think about, and it's not maybe the most important, but it is important, it's called tradition. This club's tradition. If someone outside asks, well, is that the club that meets at Seawolves, or where do you meet? Now, you got to reinvent your brand if you change locations. And you got a brand today right here. My 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I just got a question. The Agape, how many people will that seat? How many will
Their maximum is 200. 200. Okay? Now, just so you guys know, even today, like I said, this looks good to me out here. We've probably got maybe 125 to 140 in here today. Our normal meetings have been dropping. We've not had a meeting in the last year under my watch that's exceeded 200 people, just so you know. So you can kind of get a sense for the size.
Hal, just one other thought, and that is there's a few folks in here who remember meeting at the Radisson downtown, and periodically they had a big event, and we ended up meeting in the bar, which wasn't, I remember one Stiff Lincoln, particularly with our speaker before he was president of the bar. Anyway, I think we need to also make sure in the matrix that we're guaranteed that we've got it every Monday if we want it.
Did I understand in that you wanted a bar to be available to you?
Every Monday.
That's what I took away from it.
Thank you, Hal. I was going to follow up. I was president of this club 10 years ago and worked with Cal on a number of occasions. The loyalty issue, I was thinking exactly. It had been 6 years since he had come to an increase, and we don't really know whether we'd had an increase if we hadn't started the discussion about the bidding process. Secondly, from a loyalty standpoint, if we had a program coming in such as the 82nd Airborne, where we wanted to experience them marching through those 2 doors and coming in. I could call Cal, and these doors would be opened up. We'd get as much space as we needed so we could line up a program like that. And to me, his cooperation, it just made running this club a breeze. I couldn't imagine, John, running this club without knowing you had that kind of cooperation. And then just from a parking standpoint and the convenience and the brand, I'm starting to reiterate and sound like a broken record, but Seawolves has been good to this club, and I would like everyone to remember that as we consider I think it's a wonderful thing to look outside, but when it's time to make a decision, let's think about our history with Seawolves. Is Rotary about food? I don't know. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I want to make a comment just so everybody knows as we're talking about this. I mean, y'all have to understand our respect and love for the Seawolf family and for this event. Otherwise, we would not be having an open forum where we can talk about what's going on. There's a very much of an honest dialogue going on. Cal understands, that we're a club and professionals. We have to think about the future. So I don't want anybody taken away from this process that at any time in this have I gotten anything less than stellar communications, just like you just shared with us. So I don't want anybody to get that impression. This is simply, as we were talking about, be encouraged to do, Mike. This is just a process of going through, looking at different issues and making it. So, I would not be in here if this was some kind of session on Seawolves with them all around, the people we love and come to really love. So y'all just understand that. Okay, Dottie.
I want to ask everybody a question. Think back when your mama cooked you lunch and supper and breakfast. Did you sometimes get tired of mama's cooking? I mean, I've gotten tired of some of the vegetables and so forth here at Seawolves too, but then when you went to somebody else's house and somebody else's mama cooked you lunch and breakfast and dinner, you went to college and you said, this is good for a little while, but after a while you went running back home to mama, didn't you? Well, I agree, this food sometimes leaves a little bit to be desired every now and then, but overall, I like mama's cooking right here, and I can't believe I'm saying that.
Hal, you might want to talk about, I think it was a year ago when we did the surveys of the membership, and the number one thing that was on consistency was people questioning the food. And I think that's what's triggered this process a couple of boards ago.
I'm not advocating to move, but we have moved before. We were in the Jefferson Hotel downtown, we were at the American Legion, we were at the Radisson Hotel, we were at the Fairgrounds, and we've been here. We've been in various places over the years.
I was just curious what the other Rotary clubs do, what they're paying for their different meals. Some of them do breakfast, some other lunches or dinners, and where we compare with that. And then I'd just like to say too that this is a really good thing. Seawells is a business, and they understand how they have to compete. And this gives them the opportunity to compete and step it up a little and hear what we're thinking. And then they're going to come back and they're going to do even better for us. And we're going to be happy and they're going to be happy, or, whatever. But everybody needs that. Otherwise you get a little stale in what you're doing. And they're a great business, and every great business, when they do the same thing over and over and it becomes a tradition for them too, they do step back and, oh yeah, this is easy, So it's a good thing. It keeps everybody in step.
It's interesting. It just so happened that I was president the year we made the decision to move here. And a lot of people just didn't want to make that move. And the issues, though, certainly parking was a big one. Certainly cost was a big one. And there's two things that I'm thinking about. Now, cost, Hal, and I don't know whether everybody here realizes that we pay Seawolves $2 or $3 less than what we charge you. And that's one thing that keeps us from selling mops and brooms and the rest of us and helps our financial situation. we have a lot of real sharp younger people in this club right now that may need that and may be in favor of that. We certainly don't listen to it, but I've yet to see anything competitive. Hal, what do you mean by Agape being competitive, dollar-wise?
They're actually lower than what Seawolves is gonna be. I think, again, part of it, don't necessarily go there because the board, we haven't finished all the negotiations, but we've asked for it to be in. And as you know, Scott Middleton, the president of CEO Agape, has about 30 of his employees in Rotary clubs around the state. He's a huge Rotary booster, and they have they would really like to make things as easy as possible for us to come down there. So they're a very fine organization, and we're looking at that, and we feel like they're stepping up, trying to be as competitive as possible. It might be nice to hear some folks that maybe are newer members. One of the things that came up was when they were recruiting, or some folks were recruiting, whether young or old, that some people commented they'd like to be on Main Street as opposed to driving out. I've heard some issues like that. So any comments that anybody has, maybe from some newer members? Oh yeah, Frank. We got Frank. He's one of the youngest at heart.
Absolutely. I agree with the notion of a matrix and a business decision and all that. I'm also thinking something Kirk said a moment ago when he said something about priorities in food. And the venue and the food we have here, I wouldn't put at the top of my list of all the places I could eat and offerings, etc. But, when I personally think about every other aspect of meeting here, it's better than I think of with any other alternative. And particularly this year, as we've gone to different places, it just hasn't seemed the same. We've been crowded. One other thing I've complained about here, at least to people at my table and around, is the audio and the problems we have with that. Well, every place we visited has been worse than that. And at the convention center, I've made up there a number of times, and that audio can be horrible over there, and voices lost in that high ceiling. It seemed like on almost every front. And so, to me, the issue really comes down to food. That's the issue that brings this up. And if it weren't for the food, I don't think we'd be talking. And quite honestly, if I'm asked why I'm a member of this club, what matters to me, it just isn't the food. I'm going to get my food other places. I'm going to be here for the friends and the fellowship and the programs we have, for the good work we do, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Here's your new member, Al.
So I think in the grand scheme of this room, I'm like a toddler when it comes to my years of Rotary service. I've only been in Rotary for 3 years. But it's increasingly difficult for me to have Rotary conversations with people in their 30s and 40s to come to this club. I always get, ew, is that the one that meets at Seawells? And stuff like that. So for the younger, I've aged out of that younger demographic this year. But when I'm having conversations with, people in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, whatever, I just find it difficult to ask them to come here. And the people that I have brought, the food is always an issue. It's kind of the snarky remarks about the food, and I would like to see us downtown. Our downtown is thriving, and it's doing things that other parts of our city are not, it's not happening in other parts of our city. And of course, I'm on Main Street, and I'd love to be able to walk to Rotary every day. But it would be nice to be somewhere centrally located so that, we do have that downtown city backdrop. And we're the Columbia Rotary Club, so it just makes sense that we're not stuck out here. That's just my opinion as a younger Rotarian, but it would be nice to be able to don't recruit people, we're not gonna keep going. We need younger people here too.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for.
I've been a member here for some 70 years, and I'm perfectly happy.
That's because of who you brought with you today.
All right, before you guys, I say, hey, hang on a second, Mike. Y'all hold on just a second. Let me give you a quick, because we're going to run out of time anyway. And what I really want to encourage you to do is send me an email. Have time to think about it. Part of what we're dealing with as a club is not our own personal preference of what I like to eat or what I like to do, but what are we as the Columbia Rotary Club going to be in the 21st century? Where are we going? Okay? I can tell you after being the president for 3/4 of a year that we are again, people like Neil, people that serve on committees, but we are a Monday lunch club for good speakers. Okay? And I was that way for 10 years. We have great speakers. I get here as close to when the speaker starts. I eat my meal, I leave, and I don't ask me to do anything. And then somebody asks me to do something. And then I started getting involved. I'm telling you, Rotary is an organization for the 21st century like no other organization, civic community club exists, guys. And this is not just about what we want in our personal preference. It's about what we really want to do. Is it really going to pass the 4-way test of what we want to do in the future? And I want you really to ponder that, because the board is going to go through this process very, very carefully, okay? And we know all these sentiments. They were there before we started. So I had a number of people tell me, you move from here, I'm gone. Okay? I mean, and I understand. I understand a lot. But I sit in this position with a responsibility as a club president to say, are we going to continue in the way that we're going and the way it's always been? Okay? And I think in the words of John, I might want John to say those words. So I'll maybe paraphrase. But the famous last words of the dying church is, we've never done that before. Okay? So we haven't been through a process like this. Elliot mentioned earlier that we moved, and we heard that from David. But we had to move. When I joined, it was Carolina Inn, and they said, you got to get out of there. Y'all drinking too much at the bar. I don't know what he was doing out there. But we've been forced. But we've never had this kind of voluntary opportunity to really look and think about in our hearts what we're doing and where to go, because this is not going to tear this club apart. It's going to make it stronger. Whether we stay at Seawolves or go somewhere else, we're going to come back having conversations and having really engaged the club. And I just wanted you guys, before you get out of here, to hear that and really encourage all of you, before we get out of here, to really write and think this through and really try to see that we cannot just stay always the same, because we're losing members, we're losing in attendance, and we need to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do, okay? All right, so thank you guys for hanging out for that. All right, we got a couple more minutes. All right, Ellen?
I'm Sue Williams. I just wanted to concur with Carrie. I'm a newer member here, but I would also say that when I invite people, they don't want to come because it's Sue Wells. And I think that the fellowship that we have and the long-standing friendships we will have wherever we meet, that's been demonstrated from the different times that we've moved. Being Rotary in the Columbia Rotary Club will be the Columbia Rotary Club no matter where we meet. So if it comes down to we're losing members and we can't bring people here because of the food, then I think it's something we need to discuss.
Okay.
I'd just like to say what incredible respect I have for the years of tradition and loyalty that are represented in this club, and that's one reason why it's such an honor for younger people like me to become inheritors of that legacy. So I really appreciate and respect the sentiments that are being shared, but like my younger counterparts have said, I think that there is a lot to be said for trying to figure out what the future of this club is and not just living in the glory days of the past. I'd like to go so far as to say that I actually prefer the Agape venue out of all of the venues that we visited. There were several reasons for that. I felt like the food was by far the best quality that we've had anywhere. I felt like the parking was
And I just feel like when we think about as a club what we need to do to really show our support and investment for what's happening in our community, that Main Street corridor is where the action is, and I think that us having a strong presence on that corridor says a lot about what we support as a club and our involvement in the community. The last thing that I would say is that as a young professional, I'm still very young in my career, and it's a financial sacrifice for me to be part of this club. And so when I think about the value that I get for my dollar, if I'm paying $13 for a lunch meal, and possibly paying a few dollars more than that now, I have to say, in all honesty, being very frank, this food is subpar for that price. And that would definitely be a difficulty for me, and if it's for me, I can imagine it being a difficulty for the other kind of young professionals that we would want to try to attract to this club in the future. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, so, we're wrapping up on time. As you know, there are some inviolable traditions that will not be violated if you stay in past 2 o'clock. So I want you to be assured that the conversation has started but not ended. I know there's probably a lot of comments that you'd like to make. The board is going to take these comments under advisement and think about what our responsibility is moving forward, and we will make sure, as Bob has stated, to make sure that everything is on the table and everybody knows everything they want to know. Okay? Anything good with that? It is, well, we'll talk about it and let them know. Okay, so we're going to take it under, it's 2 o'clock, and mindful of timeliness, we are dismissed.